I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. What a hit!
Back of the net.
Hello. This is the Not a Pundit podcast. And who is with me? Can you guess? Of course it's Nate. Of course it's Connor. And of course it's me, Killian Ginnity. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Oh, good man, can't complain. It's been a. I think we were just saying before we hopped on across. I think multiple sports. The sporting landscape is on fire at the moment.
It absolutely is. And if you haven't already, check out our new Not a Pundit Network podcast, Formula T, brought to you by myself and Nate, where we look into the world of F1 and all the tea around it. Nate, how are you this fine week?
I'm good. Struggling to keep up with all the sports news, but we keep motoring, and there's too much nowadays. There's too much. I'm getting to the point where I can't keep up with everything. So this is a good place to come and have the chats.
A good place to vent.
Yeah, and Nate, you are a man that needs to vent this week. How do you feel after the Manchester derby?
I'm feeling okay. To the point that
He said through tears.
I feel like I've
Huh? Said through tears.
Yeah, I feel like I've been through the washing machine a few too many times. You get the hope of the first goal. You make it to halftime, and you're like, "Come on, let's put in 45 minutes for us," and then the game ends 3-1. Yeah, I like. I'm struggling to say things when we've got a 35, 36-year-old Johnny Evans playing centre back against Haaland.
What a
Do you know
man.
what I mean? Do you know
What
what
a
I
man,
mean?
though.
I'm like, I'm struggling to have that debate in my head. Like, should I be mad? Should I not? Like, so yeah, that's where I am.
I love that he came in and like in his mind he was like, oh, keep fit, bit of preseason, do a bit of a run around, and now he's fucking staple in that team.
Just shows where the club's at, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
fair.
like that's nothing against him,
It's
but
actually out of credit to him, like the fact that
yeah,
he's been able to
but
step up.
like, would he be at a City? Would he be at an Arsenal? Would
Oh,
he
God,
be
no.
at exactly? Point proven. It's like
Of course not.
the fella got relegated last season, and now he's a starting centre back for Manchester
Well, I think
United.
the real comparison, and not to lump on United, I do enough of that over this podcast, but I think when you look at what John Stones is doing at City, and then your answer to John Stones at United is, what age is Johnny these days?
35.
Yeah,
35.
I mean, he's younger than I thought, actually. I thought he was like 37.
He's been around forever. Like,
Yeah, he's been there. He's like Philip Lamb stuff. Like,
yeah, like he was one of them players that was like well embedded by the time Ferguson retired.
yeah.
That was a lifetime ago. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The thing with Evans though is I'd rather take the hit on a youngster now, getting them experience, than persevering
Have a
playing.
2002 moment where he leaves and then what?
Yeah,
Actually-
I feel like a waste.
Nate, I saw a story over the weekend, and you'll be able to actually confirm whether it's true or not, that one of United's former scouts that was based in Scandinavia, because obviously you have no scouting network now beyond Ten Hag's contact book, that he had a deal brokered with Alfie Haaland for Erling Haaland for 5 million when Erling was coming through at Mold, and he was on the cusp of making a deal with Salzburg, and the deal was that, yeah, we'll do it, 5 million quid, nice signing on fee or whatever, call us by 9 a.m. tomorrow or we'll go elsewhere. We'll presume you're not interested. And your man's like, yeah, no, absolutely, I just need to go back, I need to get on the phone, these lads will call you. And Alfie was waiting at 9 a.m, no call. Alfie's waiting at 10 a.m, no call. Alfie's waiting at 11 a.m.
Then the pub opened.
He calls the scout and was like, hey, listen, sorry, deal's done with Red Bull, we presumed you're not interested. What had happened? Man United went by 9 a.m. their time.
Oh, Jesus.
2 words, Ed Woodward. That's all that needs to be said.
Is there any truth to that? Because so...
It's the exact same with Bellingham, and like we could go through the list of wonder kids.
No, but like that in particular, that's very like photocopier not working for De Gea going to Madrid. Like that is just pure and
It's Ricky
utter.
Gervais stuff. That like it's
Like I don't know what to say. Like it did happen. It's just it sums up what the football club has been for the last 10 years. Isn't it? Like
And
absolute
considering
shambles.
the result of the weekend, you kind of could have done with him.
Yeah, I'd much rather
way
he
to
was on
rub
our
it in.
team, to be honest, than their team. But I think if he was on our team, they'd probably still smash us. So,
Well, I don't see
um,
Haaland doing 70-mile-an-hour bombs into the roof of the goal. So
Big
although he did
Marcus.
miss that sitter, you know what I mean? Like he's got to be scoring that every day of the week.
I really
Oh
thought you had
no.
it at one point. I really did. It was kind of like Jesus Christ. They might actually do the Great Escape here.
I was praying, but there's only so much times you can pray until your prayers run out. And over the 10 years, I've certainly used them. Um, but yeah, no, like I think the club it's at a standstill right now. I think sort of things have gotten even quiet with Sir Jim now. It's like, okay, Sir Jim, keep speaking to us a bit here. You know what I mean?
Now, is that something you'd be worried about, or is that actually just kind of works happening in the background, and this is where it gets a little bit slow because you're trying to do deals like you've seen it with Ashworth, where other clubs get in the way, and try to charge a lot of money, and this is just business now. Like he wasn't in a position to, because realistically he didn't know what level of control he was actually going to have when he arrived. That now he has to be reactive rather than proactive, and it's going to be the rest of the season's kind of wrote off now until he gets his own structure in place. Like, is it a worry or
Yeah,
is it just kind of like trust the process?
it's probably the latter, trust the process, but it don't like you can't help but
Frustrating.
worry. Yeah, you can't help but worry if he's not speaking to you. Like,
You have to trust the process. But to trust the process, you got to see something at the same time. It's kind of like that,
yeah,
you know.
it's like there was 3 weeks where he's talking constantly and then just went radio silence. So like, it's like okay, he could be doing stuff in the background. He probably is, but I feel like when you just taken over a club and the expectations there and stuff, and then the results on the pitch don't add up, it's a bit like, okay, come on, tell us what's the next plan here.
So, has he anybody actually in place yet?
Brailsford, I think's in.
Yeah, no, like the CEO isn't in. Yeah, that's the summer. Um, Ashford, Jesus, that
Fuck knows.
God knows when he's
Years.
coming.
Yeah, see you in
I don't even
2026,
think
pal.
he knows when he's coming.
Yeah.
Like, I heard something it was like 12 million pounds for 6 months off his gardening leave, so it'll only be 12 months, not 18 months.
I kind of love the shithousery that
Nah,
Newcastle are doing
that's
on
a
this.
joke. That is.
Like, it is kind of scummy kind of thing, but also for what he's going to bring to the club, is it not
That's
just better just to fucking pay it?
I just pay whatever they want, like.
But pay what? Like 12 million for 6 months off?
No,
But
the
like
20 they initially
the,
wanted.
the initial 20, yeah.
Give the 20. Like
The maths
in
aren't maths in here. Like,
no, but transfers alone, the value he's going to bring you instead
Yeah.
of having another Anthony. Pay 40.
the
I
thing
don't
is,
care.
it's not as easy as it probably seems because us giving Newcastle that 25 million or whatever gets them in a much better FFP spot than we're
Yeah,
in.
it does, yeah.
And it worsens our FFP. So there's mind games going on there.
But then at the
So
same time, man, you guys can walk out and get a flip-flop partner and you'll make that money back, like from a commercial point of view, you know?
don't know, the commercial deals have dried up.
Dried up.
Well and truly.
Like I'm sure there's ways and means around it. Like Ineos happens to go over to Saudi and buy a certain building that used to be owned by a certain somebody that happens to be on a board of a certain kind of fund. Like I'm sure there's ways and means around these things. Like it's not players, so it's not as highly scrutinized. And whilst I don't like that kind of thing, it's less murky than players
Yeah.
because it's not really buying an advantage. You're just buying somebody that is capable of doing well.
Well, the easy one would be Ineos actually sponsoring the club. Like, I think that's an easy one
Yeah.
to move on to.
Although City has also ruined that because of Etihad.
Yeah.
There's just
You know,
there's question marks over it.
90%
There's
of
question marks over our
City's
sponsors as well.
90% of the bleeding City sponsor boards on the weekend just said UAE on it. Felt like the game was being played in UAE, like.
May as well be.
But yeah, like there's ways around it. I do think we're gonna get the two. I think we're gonna get Thuram and the centre back from Nice. I think we're gonna get them in the summer, hopefully.
To Debo.
Tadibo and Thuram, yeah. I feel like we're gonna get them in the summer, so that'll be 2 spots. But from what I heard, the FFP has improved. It was a bit dire in January, so we've got a bit of space to play with. I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts because I've sort of heard it, but not really. And it's a question that's interesting in my head: is what do you guys think of Ten Hag's time there and him as a manager?
That's a good question.
I think Ten Hag is a fine head coach, not manager.
Yeah,
I think we've spoke about this before, where you could see him going into not a top job, but an upper level job. That I think Nate, you said before, Dortmund or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that level, but or that specific team, but I think he'll do well. I think he'll be looked back on kinder than he will be for when he does go, which is probably sooner rather than later. He'd be seen as kind of the transition between the previous regime and Jim Ratcliffe's new era. Like, kind of a hard done by, but also just a little bit beyond his means. Kind of the way people are starting to look back on Ollie's time, kind of going,
Yeah.
it actually wasn't that bad.
like
Or
But also
Jose.
he wasn't the right guy.
do you think he got fecked over, sort of like?
Well,
being that middle gap.
I don't think it was fecked over. I think it was just bad timing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, and for me, it's. I look at it with 2 lenses. Nate, to be honest, I look at it through what I used to think of Ten Hag, and then through chatting to you and the pod and all of that. I think you do have to look back at that first year. Like I wouldn't call him a failure by any means. You know, like if he left tomorrow, it's not like it was, I don't know, Ralph Ragnick situation. Like, you know, like he's, like Killian said, he's well able to be a top head coach. I just think Man United is one of the most, if not the most, outside the likes of Barcelona, political jobs in world football.
It's a poison chalice.
Yeah, so there's a tremendous amount of skills required that aren't football based to do that job, and I don't know if he has those skills. I think he has the football skills, but you know, not to dog him, but his people skills don't seem to be fantastic. He's quite stubborn in his outlook. Yes, he was brought in to enforce the rules, and situations like Sancho, if you're going to enforce rules, someone's got to be the martyr on it. But at the same time, you need to know when to bend. You know.
Definitely.
It's just pressure from within the club now on him, because results aren't going the way they should be. New era, do you just kind of give him the season and then just move on, start afresh, and see if this squad can work? Because obviously they're not necessarily working with this coach.
Well, that's the thing. This evening, the Mail have run a story where they said that the United players are actually starting to doubt Ten Hag, that he'll still be there at the end of the season, which to me is basically he's gone. In
Once you hear
short
that,
term,
you've lost the dressing room. That's
Yeah.
the white
This is
handkerchief.
the third time we've heard this with Ten Hag, though. Don't forget.
Yeah,
It's the
fair.
third losing of the dressing room, apparently.
True, yeah, and you gotta sort of take it with a pinch of salt that it comes straight after a loss.
Against City.
Yeah, I've no qualm saying this, and people won't like what I say with this, but United players have a habit of leaking things to the press when things go bad. It's 100% a fact at this point. It's been confirmed multiple times, so I can't take anything after a big loss without a pinch of salt.
Yeah, fair.
It's more of an image protecting, but what I would imagine is going on in the club is this: the players don't think he's going to be there at the end of the season with the new ownership. There's been rumors, which is funny. There's discontent among some of the players over the intensity of the training sessions.
Is in too much.
As in, yeah, the too much intensity in the training sessions, which is quote unquote leading to injuries, which to me just sounds like they're being a bit lazy.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's for a player to question. You know what I mean?
No.
Like whatsoever.
Well, it's
Um,
like that. You only hear things like that, like you said, when things aren't going well. Like if they
yeah.
were on for the quadruple, they wouldn't care if they were doing 6 hour long training sessions.
And there was also in the same article they said some players were unhappy that they were not given an extra day off after the Luton game, despite having no midweek game. I'm like,
This is
how,
your literal job.
Yeah.
how, like head in the pillow do you have to be and out of touch with where this football club is at to be requesting extra days off when you get paid some of the most inflated wages in football? Like,
I mean, sometimes you just want a night out in Belfast. You
I
just you
mean,
just want to cut loose.
like it's beyond a joke, in my opinion. Like, you get your days off, the same as every other football team. Yeah, it's always a thing where United players aren't happy with, oh, they've only had 2 days off this week, not three. Sorry, like, you get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and that's only the subs. Like, that's not. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like, Jesus, like, have a bit
class or
of,
clout,
yeah, or just like, look at yourself. Like,
self
it's a
awareness.
bit
Yeah.
crazy. Now, the interesting thing, and this would be interesting for you guys, is I reached out to someone in the club once this article came out to try and get a
Oh, we
sense
got
of
we've got a little mole, do we?
is this true, is it not true? And what I got back I found quite interesting. I said, I think things will be looked at again at the end of the season. Having said that, away from the personnel at the club, the changes, the structure, and the planning by Ten Hag has impressed almost everyone, except the less professional lot. That's interesting.
That plays into your
um,
point.
yeah, but the results have not been good, and this is a results based game. P.S. From what I know, I think Ten Hag deserves time.
Interesting.
I'm gonna
There's
try
a
that
lot
to
to
you
unpack
guys.
there.
Gonna try that to you guys. What do you think of that?
I think it's interesting to hear from a we get so much in the media about what's going on at the club, what do the people at the club believe, but obviously that's someone actually in place at the club, and it seems to me that where I was saying people may not like him that much, it seems like he's starting to craft a loyalty amongst staff there. That said, is it too late? You know?
Is it with staff or is this with like new board members? Because like I'm a Sunderland fan. We had Mick Beale, who apparently is the master of the PowerPoint. Because
Yeah.
like, is that actually kind of what's going on with Ten Hag? That he's a very organized dude and he can put together things that look great, and the new directors and all are coming in kind of going, wow, in theory that looks fantastic,
This
but
is coming
nobody's
from
buying into it.
like staff on the ground, like working with the team day in day out.
Yeah, but
Like,
he said that he's impressing everybody apart from the unprofessional staff, which would be
no, the
obviously
What player?
the
Does he
unprofessional
mean
lot.
players though?
I think he employs players as well.
I think that sounds like
these
players to
same
me.
players that are whinging about not getting days off and stuff.
I
So like,
think it
there's
could
just
tie
two
into that.
conflicting things. Like, I'm not sure like of the I don't doubt the source. I'd question our interpretation of what he means by staff or what they mean by staff. But I don't think it's going to bode well for him. And if no matter how well he does, is that the fans' expectations are always incredibly high, ridiculously
Yeah,
so.
rightly so.
Um, and I think what's going to end up happening is they'll give him to the end of the season, and unless there's kind of proper indications of a system that players can slot into, specifically players that they already have their eye on, like you mentioned before, Taram and uh, Tobito, that like, are they actually going to be an improvement on Lindelof or a 35-year-old Johnny Evans in the way that they're playing? I think that's where it could lose him the job, that he's now kind of so used to firefighting his position to just make a team that works that.
But like, do you know what's funny, lads? I'd love to know deep down, does Ten Hag even want to be there? I'd say he's so fed
I
up of this.
I'd say he wouldn't. That'd be my interpretation. That's not off any
Yeah,
information
yeah, yeah.
whatsoever. I just don't think he would be.
I just
The thing
get the
I
feeling that
find
he's just
interesting
beaten
is
down.
there's always these quote unquote leaks and stuff, and questions on players being unprofessional and stuff like that. It feels like there's a real divide in that club, and
Mm.
to the point where I don't even think the new ownership has fixed it. I think it's a culture issue that needs a lot of
Well,
resolving.
hasn't Ratcliffe's people basically come in and said anyway that they need to gut the 1,000 staff
Yeah,
and get that down to a fraction of that number?
but like,
And you'd imagine that part of that would be bringing in a coach that will be working or used to working in that kind of a structure where it's kind of going either you're going to be lean and mean or you're going to get used to delegating to different areas, because like you said before, there's going to be like a head of this department, a head of that department, and like suddenly the manager or the head coach is not going to be that have that much influence on them other teams. So technically his staff, whereas Ten Hag's could be 30 or 40 right now, whoever comes in, if there was somebody brought in, like you can't exactly turn around to
but
Ten
like
Hag, oh yeah, all these lads you've been working with, we have to get rid of 20 of them because you're actually going to
Ten
have a staff
Ten
of
Hag
10.
comes from a system that's like that. Like he was at Ajax where it was very much
Yeah,
multiple
but that's now
departments
years ago.
ahead.
That's now years ago. Like
But
he
I
now
No,
like
has
no,
that
I
staff that
style.
he's
know,
been
I
working
know.
with.
But if the club is transitioning to that way, you could see how they could come to. Okay, he's worked in that environment. He was thrown into a shit show, which the club is in disrepute. Like, lads, if we go back to Ranić, like the leaks that came out during that time and the shit show during his very short reign and what happened when he was basically told to feck off, it's like he instantly came in to a club that was burning. And it's like,
Also, can we just put that also on the record that everything Ranić has said came to be true?
Oh yeah,
oh, 100%.
Everything that he spotted, called out, was all 100% true, and his reputation has been irreparably damaged, and for no good reason. Like he went into the burning building, and people were whinging that he didn't put it out.
but this is the thing with a burning building, man. It's like, and I think United at that point it was definitely a burning building. I don't think it is as bad now, but like the thing with that is like they chose to run into them flames. You know, like I do think there's certain
Well,
times and certain clubs that you just
But he was
Don't-
can't
promised
go into.
things.
You
don't
know,
forget with Ranić, he was going to be brought in as a director of
Yeah,
football.
he
He was
was
only an
promised.
interim manager.
yeah.
Just guide us to the summer, and then you'll be the one in control. And like, made all the
Never happened.
promises.
Honestly, his book's gonna be crazy. Like genuinely, his book's gonna be crazy because he was literally lied to and set up. Like literally, it was a setup. Like
Yeah, he was the fall guy. We're going to get this guy in, and we'll promise him the sun, moon, and stars. And if he does half good, well then great, we'll get the benefit of that. If he doesn't, well then he'll be gone, and we'll have whoever we want after it. Who cares?
so.
I know we've talked about it before that, you know, when managers get relieved of their duties, shall we say, to be polite, that there's potential NDAs in play there, and that's why you don't hear the full story. But like, how long do those usually run? You know,
I
like
think
is it
Ranić's up because he done an interview recently. So
okay?
like he's playing a dice there. If it's not,
Yeah,
um,
Ranić's
the,
too astute
yeah,
to like. I'd imagine that there's
there
no
was one.
NDA or no long term NDA.
It was yeah. I don't think it was long term.
Yeah, because like he be the type that like look after he left Red Bull, never said a word against them.
So
I'm sure he had plenty of things that he could.
yeah, he's just
So
smart enough not to.
yeah, I think he's the kind of guy that you can trust him to do it on a handshake.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
so lads, a quick question. And this is my final one. Is it still a burning building they're walking into now if they do go with a new manager? And if so, who do you think that new manager
I
would be?
don't, I don't think it's a burning building. I think there's a fire in one of the bedrooms. You know what I mean? Like I think there's issues there, but I don't think it's not fixable. As to manager, well, first of all, actually, before we go on to manager, Killian, what are you saying? Burning building or not?
Yeah, it's still on fire.
What are you saying, Dave?
There's firemen with hoses on it, but it's still on fire.
They need a couple more engines, or
Yeah, like see that's the thing. Like he's only in the building. Hasn't sacked anybody yet properly. Like there's been no mass
Radcliffe, this is,
sackings.
yeah.
Yeah. There's been no mass sackings like he promised there will be yet. So there's no footprint on it. He doesn't have his own people in there yet. So what you're seeing is still the Glazers, just with Ratcliffe in control of that. And I'm sure all that him and his people are going to be doing is just guiding that to the end of the season, and you're going to see half the staff get sacked. And a part of the reason why I think Ten Hag will end up having to go is because you can't turn around and go, "Hey, see the guys you've been working with for the past 2 years? Yeah, half of them need to go because they don't work in our structure." Like you can't really say that to a guy and keep him as well because all of his mates are after.
But then at the
are
same
looking at him.
time, if say on the new manager point, like say if a Zidane comes,
Mm.
Zidane comes with a big ticket, and if if Zidane wants to bring in 30 people, they will let 30 people come. You
But
know
it'd
what
be
I mean?
30 people within their structure. They can go, well, listen,
Yeah.
they're going into our scouting team.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Whereas it's now like considering Ten Hag is the scouting team. Like imagine somebody else coming and going, "Oh yeah, no, we're not
Yeah.
going to use you anymore." Like, could you imagine if the Glazers said to Alex Ferguson, "Yeah, actually, no, we don't want your brother as your scout anymore." No, just wouldn't have happened. Like,
So, do you think there's any managers in world football right now that stands out that would be a good suit for Manchester United?
Ooh, great
That's
question.
that's a hard, it's a hard question.
Because it's not a who would take. Is there anyone out there that would take it? There's 50 managers that would take it, but the fit. Oh, you got it. That was a proper
I'll
journalist run
I'll,
their name.
I'll go last. I have a name. You could probably guess if you tried. But who would you think?
I swear to God, if you say Steve Bruce,
Sorry, Steve. This one's a
well,
bit too out of your round.
my version of Steve Bruce has been very much touted, and I think, in that kind of a structure, he would work, which would be Graham Potter. I don't think he'd get the job. I think he'll be definitely interviewed for it. I think he'd be an
you
astute
think?
signing. Yeah, like that. Like it, they're going to try and recreate Brighton's structure. Like it works. The only issue with him is the big egos, and it seems to be now that like based on like Nice or whatever, Ratcliffe's team isn't interested in egos. They don't want a Jadon Sancho next time just because he's the next big English prospect. They're going to go for the right people with the right personality to fit into their system. The other one I think could be good, short but good, is Tuchel.
Tuchel, the more time goes on, does make sense. I think outside Tuchel, running on the Brighton train, I think De Zerbi could work. I
I don't
don't.
think De Zerbi takes it though.
That's the thing. I totally agree
Yeah.
with you. I think he'd work, but I think he's smart enough not to take it.
Nate, what's the name you're going to throw at us? Because I'll run through the odds after that.
Okay, my name. Okay, I've got my guy that I go with, and then a guy that I think it will be.
Okay.
Right. The guy I think it will be Ruben Amorim from.
I knew you
Spurs.
were going to say that because it was the one that he's linked with Liverpool. I was like, if Liverpool don't take him, United will. I knew it.
He's not necessarily my pick,
Mm.
but I think how I've heard and read how he based a lot of things off stats and stuff that'll fit into the new Ineos model. But my guy would be Thomas Tuchel.
You've
That's
said
who
that you've been hitting that drum for a while.
I know it would be very short and sweet.
He's
Obviously,
Mourinho-esque in that way.
But are we
Like
talking
3
like
years.
4 years or yeah? Okay.
I think he's a guy that could, if in the right environment, go in there, change a culture, make it very stats based like Ineos like it, and I just like the way he plays football. Dating back
Like
to
he's done this kind of role at PSG. Like he is willing to kind of go in, turn the thing around,
And bounce.
and move on,
Yeah.
or be moved on. Like PSG had a few of them with Ancelotti, Pochettino, Tuchel. Like, is that what United need? Is just to kind of move on to the next era? Let's get the right kind of new mentality in. And
One
even if it is
question I
only
have for
2
you,
or
lads,
3 years.
on the manager front, and I've borrowed this question from a competitor pod, but
Oof.
do you think there should be a transfer season for managers?
No.
So where this goes in, I thought you'd be down for it because this gets rid of you can sack them after 6 weeks. If you can only get rid of them, say January or the summer, or maybe it's 3 times a year, it means managers get more time.
I'm
No,
not
I
against
don't
the
think.
idea. where would the line be drawn? Because like suddenly you're doing that with coaches,
Yeah.
and yeah, it would get messy, I think. And to be honest, I don't think the clubs would ever go for it. Like, and it would need to be a super majority for the Premier League to bring it in. It'd be interesting though.
I see. It's one of those ones. I don't think it would ever happen. I don't think it's feasible. But it piqued my interest because I was like, where the examples though of where it wouldn't work is, say there's a manager who's just like, you're properly going to get relegated. You need to get rid of him, and now you're stuck with him. One,
Mm.
if you've got, say, when Gary Neville was at Valencia and the fans want him out, the owners want him out, and the fact that you're like prisoned into keeping someone is not realistic. But then at the same time, it just kind of made me go, would that, I suppose, recalibrate how teams look at managers and how long they give them,
Or would it end up being that your manager ends up not mattering and your manager just becomes some coach that's a
Just
face,
puppet,
and
like,
then
Just becomes the director
you're
of football.
hiring a load of then you're
Yeah.
hiring director of footballs or your assistant managers or
So you're effectively keeping the manager but putting it somewhere else.
like
Yeah.
it'd just be
call it,
abused.
on-field football
but
operations or something.
before we move on from United, the current odds according to Sky: Graham Potter 5-2, Thomas Tuchel 6-1, Ruben Amorim 7-1, Simone Inzaghi 8-1,
Really? That's
Yeah.
a surprise.
Ugh.
De Zerbi 10-1, Zidane 12-1, Southgate 14-1, Lopetegui 14-1, Mourinho 16-1, Nagelsmann 20-1, Michael Carrick 20-1, Ange Postecoglou 25-1, Gary O'Neill 25-1, Kieran McKenna 25-1, Eddie Howe 28-1.
Would you,
Conte
if we got rid
33-1.
of how would you have him?
No,
Why?
because he's not a Manchester United manager.
Yeah. Oh God, we're gonna have words over that later.
But can I just point out how Southgate is better odds than O'Neill? Like, what's going on there?
That British
South-
bias, mate.
Southgate has a better odds than Mourinho,
Gee, lads.
Nagelsmann, Postecoglou, Conte, Thomas Frank, Xabi Alonso, Luis Enrique, Pochettino, Solskjaer,
Luis Enrique is
Rodgers.
an interesting one to me. That could work.
Lads,
Sure, he's only at
Southgate,
PSG.
if he takes over Manchester United, that's the day I stop supporting this club. Like 100, like I'll draw the line there. Okay, number one. And number two, I'm not going to get involved in this repainting how Southgate looks. Like, he's an awful manager who's been
Yeah.
handed
He is a
the absolute
politician in football.
world and still makes the world look mediocre. Like Jesus Christ.
He's a man that has, by definition, failed upwards,
I mean,
like in management.
You know,
Can this
one
be
thing
the last
actually-
we mentioned Southgate and Manchester United in the same sentence, please. Like, genuinely.
well, one man who's not on that list, and it says a lot about our manager hunt on the Emerald Isle, is Mr. Carsley. He's not even a 25-1er.
No, he's not even a 66-1er, which is Ruud van Nistelrooy, who actually, why has he not been approached by the FAI? Because that would be
That would be
box office.
amazing.
But yeah, we have our interim manager, as we said last week. But the news today, as of recording, was that Director of Football for Ireland, Mark Cabram, has said that contractual obligations mean they're not allowed to talk about the new manager until April.
Think that's buying more time.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. I'm seeing right
England under
through this
21s.
FAI BS. This is
England under 21s
no
next
no.
games are at the end of March, so the training camp will be into April, and then it's not playing again until September.
I mean,
I'm not saying that's what it is,
but all the hints point to Carsley. But like, I just think this is fugazi smoke and mirrors stuff.
Yeah, let's get one thing straight. I don't think you can come out and say that in the media and not be Carsley. Like, he knows what he's doing there.
I'd
He
say
knows-
if it is Carsley be
that's the deal.
fuming.
But if it's
no,
not
but maybe that's the
Carsley,
deal. Maybe who, like, I'd be very interested to know, is there like a breaking point in Carsley's contract where he can, like, right now he can turn around and goes, yeah, I can leave on a free at my own discretion, but he's not going to leave them in the lurch. He's going to go, listen, if I am doing that, I'm going to give you a little bit of time. I'll do these camps, and I'll give you at least 3 or 4 months. So that
But
probably Ashley Cole will take his
It's a
role.
good look for Canham if
The
he
thing
pulls
is,
this off.
they could come out and say, we've signed Lee Carriage as the new men's national team manager after the games. Like, they could come out and say that. Like, that's not... Like, that's something that can't happen. So, why are they delaying at number one? And number
Contractually,
two...
well, that's the thing. He said it's
No.
contractually he's not allowed
I
to
just
talk
don't
about it.
believe. I just think that's, as a former PR person, that's just spin, man.
And the thing is, if it's not Lee Carriage, and I'll say it again, he knows what he's doing. And we should see
I
it
just
for
don't
what
buy
it
it.
is.
One thing I will say, boys, that I'm tremendously happy about, and it's the first good decision the FAI have made in a long time. Brian Kerr is back, baby. I'm so glad to have his brain back in the building.
Is it a good move?
Yes, why not? No one knows Irish football better than him.
Now that's a PR move.
Yeah,
Well,
come on,
yeah.
like, come on, he's coming in, having a few cuppas, sitting down at the bleeding table.
I love it. I love it.
It's sign of just gone backwards again. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if they were that interested in having someone coming in and filling that role, in my opinion, there's probably a lot better people suited to that role.
And a lot
And
more
not
permanent
necessarily on an Irish basis, but on a football basis that can come in and do that role. So I think it's a backward step.
Interesting.
I'm not impressed with it.
It's not even a backward step because he's only going to be there for the interim period.
Yeah,
Like,
I really don't know. Like, it's just...
I thought he was taken
No.
on as technical director. Oh, it's just O'Shea's staff.
Technical advisor to the interim manager.
Oh,
literally
that's
just to get-
stupid. Okay,
it's-
sorry. Yes, I agree with you, boys. I thought that was like a long-term move.
It's
No,
to sell out
no,
the
no.
Aviva in
Yeah.
March. That's literally the reason.
Give him his new tracksuit and
Like, that's
I think
literally the reason.
the idea is basically by saying that O'Shea isn't a manager. He doesn't have the experience to be a manager. So we're going to get an old school head in that knows the setup to be there to give him the hand. But did you know there is actually somebody more pessimistic about him being back than us?
Who?
And that's Dave on Twitter, who is apparently the burner account of Mr. John Delaney. Have you seen this
I
story?
haven't seen this.
No,
This is
I
the
haven't
Michael
seen
Beale
this.
stuff.
Oh, this is beyond, because so there is a few little bits to this now. So
What's the account called?
I will get you the name of it now.
Yeah, I need to look this up.
This is the
This is
most John.
terrible audio as we all go.
Yeah, as we-
While you're searching for this, can we all agree we need a Netflix series on John Delaney? Like,
Oh, yeah.
we genuinely need like a Drive to Survive in the background.
The account is at Jim777 now. So that's
Jim
47.
777 now.
So it's 4 sevens,
Okay,
and it's under the name Dave.
that's just. And who's drawing this connection?
So basically, he's been beefing with Jonathan Hill, this account, on Twitter, and has been very criticizing Kerr, criticizing a lot. But the clincher of this was in January 2021. So this is a long-standing burner, if it is one. Messaged the Kew Village Police over in England, asking, quick inquiry. My girlfriend lost her driving license last Friday walking through Kew Village. Natalia is from Russia. If anyone has the same knowledge or is same, please contact me. And now the link being was John Delaney famously had a long-term girlfriend, and then in the last, was it 2 years, broke up with her.
Yeah.
Whilst announcing he got another woman pregnant.
Oh,
Who was a
Jesus.
former Russian model named Natalia.
Oh my God! I'm just looking at some of the tweets here. Like, so looking at off the happy birthday Brian Kerr from Ireland football, and good old Dave comes in, an angry, bitter old man. Okay, tell us how you really feel. Then next one up, bringing back a bitter 70-year-old man who slagged Kenny off and has not worked in football for years. If he's so great, why has he not got a serious role in football for 20 years? Oh, allegedly, we must say to all of this that it's possibly Mr. Delaney, but if it is, that's wild.
It
Yes.
is very, very amusing.
We asked Dave to come on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll do the keep him in a dark room and
We send him a
change the
message.
voice.
Dave or Jim, if you are listening out there,
We just
We
wanna
have the
talk
driver's
to you.
license.
We can set up an anonymous voice, muffle your voice. We'll just have the chat. You know what I mean?
yeah, like it would be absolutely amazing, just to hear if this actually is his. Like there's kind of less than the Michael Beale one to connect them, but there would be a certain number of hallmarks met, and at least it'd be somebody more pessimistic than this interim thing than we have been over
You're
the
some man for
last.
knowing the hidden gems in this kind of thing.
Chronically online, I think is the
He's got a bit
but
quiet.
do you know who else is going to be going very quiet? It's
Who?
Paul fucking Pogba.
Oh yeah,
4-year ban.
What is? It's actually sad. Like it is sad.
It's not.
It's sad in
It's
ways
sad.
of it. Just yeah, it's the kind of like
That's what
what
he
could
gets
have
for
been.
threatening witch doctors against Kylian Mbappe when they didn't call him up to the World Cup.
You think of the life he's had though, like his family setting him up to be what was it, kidnapped or
Mm.
blackmailed or something. There is the argument here again. This is all allegedly, so we don't get bloody sued. But Italian clubs have a little bit of a history for the old, doping,
Mm.
and Keno's come out and talked about it on Stick to Football. We covered it in our deep dive episode on doping, which is I'd advise people to go back and look at because it sheds a bit of light on the situation. But there is a world in which he didn't know. I don't believe that is the case, but there is a world in which he didn't know.
I think giving all benefit to of the doubt is the lad has been out for 18 months with injury, and
Probably
this
getting
is kind
pumped
of
full of stuff.
yeah, basically that it was a last ditch effort to get his body right.
Yeah, like
By
this is the end of his
somebody.
career. Like he's 34 when he comes off this ban. I'd say even if he appeals it, they're not going to give him anything because they want to throw the book at him.
Well, the thing about it is, like, if the ban is held, that's 6 years without playing.
Yeah,
Like I do find it just really sad. Like not to mention the stuff that happened with all the family and stuff. Like
yeah.
he's
The
just been
waste of
on a
potential.
downward spiral since then. And like I was when that bang came out, like I sort of went down to the YouTube rabbit hole, rewatching some stuff. Like he's such a good footballer, you know what I mean?
He had such
Like
potential. Like
he's
he's a World
genuinely
Cup winner for Christ's sake. Like
100%. Like, but he'll always be known as the guy that didn't reach that full potential, and
yeah,
I think that's sad. But
yeah.
what I'll say about from what I've seen from when I've seen a lot of him is he is like one of the most naturally gifted footballers I've ever seen. Like when
When he
he's
was when he
on,
was on it, he was unbelievable.
honestly, one of the best footballers you can see play, in my opinion. And I think that's the sad thing is he never nailed that consistency. And it did
Arguably,
spiral.
that he didn't have the mentality for it.
True, but I think also his mentality, maybe not his mentality, more his personality, was the thing that attracted everyone to him.
But on the mentality, man, like if you've got a family that are doing that kind of thing to you,
Yeah,
you've hardly been built to survive in a high performance world.
No, I don't mean that. Like he did well at Juventus and had the kind of brazenness and the kind
Yeah.
of the swagger. Like he had that fucking like the Rock for a WWE reference. That kind of like I am that
Moxie.
bastard.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm him.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
he's the end of a dying breed of entertaining footballers that aren't just PR trained. Like, and I mean that, like, he wasn't scared to talk and do things, like have fun. I don't think you see much of that nowadays. It's all
I
very
think on that, I think he's the perfect transition footballer when you look at he's a footballer that yes was one of them ones naturally gifted and fun to watch on his day, but had all of the influence and trappings of being the mega rich footballers. Like if you look at Ronaldinho was doing the fun stuff and then he was doing the normal thing that any lad could have been doing,
He
going out and
loved to
drinking.
party. Yeah.
But then you had Pogba that was like more interested in like the business and was getting way, way more money and was way too interested in building a brand. Like we're seeing it now with players with like playing video games rather than um focusing on that. And I think if you look at Pogba, he could be just the perfect transition of the two eras meeting, kind of going, yeah, that's an old style way of playing, but you had all of the trappings of the modern way, and that's where you
yeah.
went wrong.
Is
Just a very quick aside, Thomas Gravesen was once in the top 5 ranked COD players in the world when he was at Everton. Just very
So
funny.
it's funny you say that. Before we hopped on, I saw that video too.
Is a bit reactionary. Tell me if I'm being a bit reactionary, okay? But that was the 2018 World Cup, yeah, the one that he won.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
If he moved on at that point, went to Real Madrid and nailed down the consistency, from what we've seen before that, do you think he could have gone down as one of the best midfielders? Like,
If he had a head on him like Paul Scholes, he could have been one of the greatest players to ever touch a ball.
like I don't think I've seen someone as naturally gifted as him. Like I remember just and maybe I was watching highlights and it's obviously going to be his best stuff, but like everything he touched was always perfectly weighted. He had the strength to rub them off. He could make a tackle.
He
He
was
could play a
quick.
ball from 50 yards over the top, land perfectly on the foot. Like I don't think I've seen a midfielder, at least I'll say a midfielder, but bordering on player, bar the obvious ones that were just as gifted as him. Like I really don't.
Like I think there has been players to reach the level that he did, say at Juventus, and then to drop off as well. Like think of Juan Roman Riquelme.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
That time at Barcelona, I think he of anybody, he's probably as close as kind of going, you are the next guy, you are the next thing. And then 3 years later, he was back in Argentina. And again, it was a mentality thing with him, but he still carved out a long career for himself and is now the president at Bockers. Pogba, yeah, like if he had made a move to a different team,
I don't think the team would have mattered, man. Because
I
like,
do.
I absolutely do.
I think
do you think?
moving to Juventus,
There was nobody
was a
there
stagnant move.
there was nobody there for him that he respected to keep him in line, and I think that was one of the bigger things with Juventus when he's coming through. He's coming through alongside the likes of Pirlo and all, who he looked up to. So
Yeah.
he was never going to go against what his heroes, his immediate heroes, were doing. And like when you look at his time at United, he was looking up to a very relatively strong United team. So what he came through 08, 09? Was that the year?
He was very young. Yeah,
And
Yeah, and you're looking up to the likes of a Carrick, Ji-sung Park, who's all these players,
Skulls,
Giggs,
Yeah.
but all these players that were renowned for their work rate,
Yeah.
not their
But
image.
this is the thing, and maybe I'm being unfair to him here because like you're allowed to have role models, and everyone has people they base themselves off to, and they say you surround yourself with the people you want to be, that kind of thing. But also to be at the level that he wanted to be at and should have been at, a lot of it has to be on you. You can't be. It doesn't matter if you're in a team full of Phil Nevilles. Like you need to be able to be the leader, be your own guidance.
some players do.
No, I agree with that to an extent, but I think you have to have the mentality to be able to withstand
The pressure.
Like if you look at even Rashford at United now, the fact that he kind of gets away with as much as he does in the long term will mean he will not have reached his potential.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pogba's the same, and if Pogba had moved to Real and he would have been under Zidane,
That's what I mean. I was about to say. Do you remember the season where Zidane was begging for him? I genuinely think if he moved that season, we wouldn't be here talking about this. Like,
It's just such a shame.
And don't forget, Man United has a history of scapegoating the
Like-
best player.
and I think
Yeah.
he was the player that needed a leader beside him because he could do the flair stuff. He had that personality.
He didn't have a defensive midfielder beside him, let alone a leader.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like I genuinely think if he moved to Real Madrid, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and in fact, we probably would, barring injury, be having a conversation where he ranks in some of the best footballers. Like I really do.
It's
And
funny though. I'd never call myself a fan of Pogba, but like you're saying, I genuinely, when I read the news, I wasn't like, oh yes, finally got him. I was like, oh, why? It's so avoidable.
I think it's a pitch perfect end.
It sums him up.
A career of what if.
Yeah, it sums him up.
I think it's a very sad end to a career that could have been a what if. Do you know what I mean?
But it's in the same way that, like, I often I'm of the opinion if if alcohol didn't exist, Paul Gascoigne could have possibly been the greatest player to ever touch a football. Who knows? You know what I
It's
mean?
like, yeah, like there's loads of players. Like even like I feel like Hazard's a what if. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'd put Hazard and Pogba on a very even playing field. Technically, I think they're both major what ifs.
Hazard was such a. It's like that's
I
another
think
one. Watching him just kind of. I'm not even being a dick saying this, but watching him just get fat and lazy just was horrible. Like,
the only thing with Hazard different to Pogba was Hazard proved he could do it.
I think Pogba proved he could do it
No, but
when he won that
sustained.
World Cup. Like that was the
Well,
Pogba World Cup.
was Hazard not in the team of the year something like 5 or 6 years in a row?
he went through a period where, like, I mean,
He
any
was the
club in the world would have picked him. You know.
Yeah, and he was the best player in the Premier League. So like Pogba had 2 or 3 really good seasons, and then it all went off. Hazard, I think, as you said, he got fat and lazy,
Yeah.
but he had proven the point. And I think he's a player that had a similar mentality to Pogba, kind of going,
Yeah.
well, I for as long as I need to prove it, I will. And the difference being is he felt he needed to prove it for longer. Whereas I think once Pogba got 350k a week or whatever he was on at United, it was like, well, yeah, look, obviously I'm as good as I think I am because they're after paying 80 or 90 million
Yeah.
for me.
Well, and on
And
that
giving
on that
me,
vein, another person that lob into that category is Gareth Bale. You
yeah,
know,
Yeah, less
same
so
kind of
though. I'd
thing.
less
say.
so in different ways. It wasn't really his choice, but I mean, he could have easily just. And I'm not going to do the whole he decided to sit there and play golf thing, but I just mean, like, if he really wanted it, he could have left, forged a move somewhere, or forced a move somewhere, and, like, look, his CV is incredible, and he's an amazing player, but, like,
But
there is
he'll
an
never
element
be
of what if.
remembered as a. He'll never be remembered for his overriding football skill actively
Yeah,
than his CV. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
Like,
we'll
he's
all
got a
look back
he's
in
got a
20
CV
years
of
and go,
like, personally, I think Gareth Bale was Ballon d'Or level. You
"Oh
know,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, but like, and he has one of them kind of CVs now that's kind of going, oh my god, I can't believe you won that much. Did you
yeah,
not spend all the time on the bench?
yeah.
No, he was actually key in most of their Champions League wins. But
He
yeah,
won one of them pretty much single handedly. Like,
remember that Boise."
oh,
The last thing I'll
unreal.
say on Pogba is, um, I'll never forget the start of the season where he had 8 assists after 3 games. That was. Do you remember we bet Leeds 6-0?
I
He
don't
Mm,
scored.
remember. I actually don't remember this. He had
He
8
got
assists in 3
eight
games.
eight assists after 3 games. And I was like,
That's
it was
frightening.
it was a couple of seasons in, and I was like, oh my god, has Pogba landed? And then 3 games later, he was out with the team
Is
again.
it
like
bad? My
that
brain was just like, I wish I had him on fantasy.
that Leeds game, man. Like with those 3 games, he was just sitting back in the holding road, just pinging balls like it was crazy. And yeah, that my
Do you think
override.
Fergie, if he'd stayed with Fergie, and, like, do you think he could have? Is that the kind of leader or is he kind of too old guard for a Pogba? Was it like, is it Zidane would keep him in check, like you said?
I think Fergie was too old school in the sense that he would have not given him the short leash that he needed.
Right.
Yeah, great.
I
I think
think
he needed
Zidane
Juventus.
appreciates the modern world and just asks them to keep it within a limit.
Because
Kind of go,
Zidane's an
yeah,
interesting one because he's old guard, but he was at the changing of the guard. You know.
yeah, yeah. Like but he was doing it from the player's perspective as well. Like it's like as soon as Zidane got old, like he's old now in his 50s, whereas we're talking about a 70-year-old
Yeah.
Alex
Yeah.
Ferguson. Like it's a different way of looking at an old school. But Connor, you did mention forging a move, and before we finish, I do want to talk about a team that was forged a move, being Wimbledon beating MK Dons 1-0 with a 90 plus 4 minute winner by Irishman Ronan Curtis, nephew of Chris Coleman.
Oh.
Yeah. If you don't know, Wimbledon became MK Dons when it was moved, and that's where the Dons come from, Wimbledon. And the original, or as was it Sky, or I can't remember who the commentators were, says the real Dons have bet MK Dons.
Oh, that's a nice
Oh,
little jab.
It was just a proper football purist's dream because AFC Wimbledon are a Phoenix team, worked their way up. They've had Football Manager as sponsors. I think John Green, who wrote The Fault in Our Stars, as a shareholder. The initial chairman used to only get paid a shilling because he had to take a
To pay,
payment.
but he didn't want to.
So he took a ceremonial one, and he said, "You know what? A shilling just sounds better than a pound."
Like I'd say, like what that must have meant to that core fan group. Like obviously the players, that's one thing, but I mean to the people that have been there from the get, that must have just been everything. Like like I know obviously you're in football to win trophies and get promoted and go to the biggest leagues, but that's one of those moments where like that's a Champions League win to them, you know.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
That's almost
But
bigger than football. Like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? In terms
Yeah.
of like what that means to that community. Like,
and then there is the other side, which was maybe like a week ago, that I kind of feel bad from now. But Dean Livingston, the left back for MK Dons, made his 930th appearance for them, which is the equivalent of, I think, 25 appearances for 20 years.
That's outrageous.
Jesus.
He's the most amount of appearances for a single club in the EFL, I think.
What was
And he's still
Giggsy?
going.
Giggsy must be up there.
EFL.
Oh, sorry, EFL. Okay,
EFL.
I'll get it for you now.
Not so. But I think Giggs has less games than you think.
Because like it was outrageous the number
But
he got.
but don't forget, like it's 24 teams.
Yeah.
672.
Yeah, whereas
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
your man in MK Dons is in the 900s.
What age is he?
41, I think.
Oh my God.
Fair fuck.
But he's still going. Lewington, not Livingston, Lewington.
Give the man a break. Have a bloody Kit Kat, like.
He so he's made 771 league appearances in December. Gone.
Okay.
The most career league appearances by a player for a single club in the history of the EFL. A record that was held since 1981. And he started out in Wimbledon.
That's
So he did.
What?
And he's worked the
What,
whole way
like-
through. So it's 810 appearances across the two clubs. And in total, if you include cup games, it's 934.
good God.
What way do you think he's feeling about it?
Yeah,
Like, no, like genuinely, like, do you think he's like fair fuck? Like,
I'd say he's
because,
like, you
he
know what,
must
fair,
have,
like, yeah.
like, I wonder if he was rubbed up the wrong way when it happens. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I still feel slightly aggrieved by the whole thing because we missed out on Dublin FC in the Premier League, because that would have been fun. But it was interesting as well. MK Don fans have started to turn against Pete Winkelman, who is the man who brought them to Milton Keynes, and they was seen shouting at him in front of his Jeep, and he was turning to confront them, and it kind of shut him up when they turned around and says, "You promised us Premier League football."
Ooh, big claims. You got to
They
back him
lost
up.
to AFC Wimbledon in League One. So, for whatever your opinion on it, it was a very movie-esque ending.
Oh, I mean, the kind of movie that would be is like Goal or like Goal 2. Like, it's not going to be Oscar worthy, but good God, you'd
there
watch
has
it.
to be a documentary on that. Like,
Yeah.
like
Well-
surely some. Like,
Speaking of fairy tale endings, that brings us to the end of our podcast. Thank you very much for listening, lads. Thanks very much for joining me on a fine evening such as this.
no, but
And we'll chat to you next week.
Chat soon.
bye.
I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. What a hit!
Back of the net.